Federal Reserve buys that debt, puts more units in the system, and the cycle starts to repeat. Because every time that Treasury issues more debt to get more monetary units, they did what? They increased the monetary supply. The money supply goes up.
Yeah.
More money supply, more inflation. More inflation, higher interest rates. Higher interest rates, larger debt burden. Repeat until the entire system collapses. So this is the way, like, third world countries that haven't been able to print their own currencies, this is the way they go into hyperinflation very, very quickly. In countries like the United States that have a world reserve currency, this game can play out for many, many decades. But it's exactly the same game. And so it's like watching a slow motion train wreck. And I think a lot of people are ignorant of it or don't believe what we're talking about is real because all they're hearing is debt bad, too much debt. And people have been saying that since the 80s or 70s, right? If you've been hearing too much debt is bad, and it hasn't had an impact on government operations for 40, 50, 60 years, it's easy to dismiss. But you and I and other Bitcoiners know we've crossed this threshold now into what we call fiscal dominance, which is where we have the interest on the debt growing at an exponential rate. Therefore, even without adding more spending, the debt is growing in and of itself. It's like your credit card going from a 0% introductory rate to a 20% rate. And you ran that credit card up when it was at 0%. And now all of a sudden you can't afford the monthly payment. And so now the credit card debt's just growing and growing and growing, and you can never grow out of it. And so the government is hitting that point, and that is the death side.
Yeah. I think one thing for me that was really interesting to learn is when you said, like the one task of the Federal Reserve is to set the rate for money. Basically, they set the cost for money, which is already a very interesting concept by itself, right? So they influence the worth of the money, and therefore they influence the cost for people who want to borrow money, for example, to build businesses, etc. I think this is an entirely different topic as to what you could think about that. But I think what I took away from it is that if we would do a value exchange in a free market, we are not in a free market if there's a third party who influences the cost of the reward that we use to reward the supply side of the value exchange, right? So again, for me, that was kind of like, as a rational person, I thought like, oh, this doesn't really make sense. But I think this is another topic. But interesting,
and another way to look at that is that it's the rate of extraction.
Exactly. Yes, and that used to be very small, right? So people don't notice, but now also the debt that a country gives out, or how do you say? Well, yeah, that used to go through treasury auctions, right? So other people or other countries would buy the debt of, well, in this case, the United States. You see that those auctions also get worse and worse, but now it's like the treasury is buying them. Am I saying that correctly? Or it's like a little cash circle. No, like you buy your own treasuries, and then it looks like the auction went okay, right? And then still, but that actually accelerates the entire debt spiral, right? Because you cannot export the inflation of the money to other countries again, and so you have to do it to your own citizens.
Right, that's right. So in the banking world, they call it check kiting, which is illegal and you go to jail for it. But at the central, between all the big commercial banks, right, it's totally illegal.
Yeah, and so this spiral goes on. You have this fiscal dominance, which means the economic condition when debts and deficits are so high that any monetary policy, so any any action by the Fed is just they lose control over the spiral.
Yeah. So losing control is an interesting word, because
Or other way around, they cannot
right.
control
No,
it
I mean,
like they want to.
it's I think that's the way it ends up. But there's, I mean, it's kind of surprising, right? It's shocking, I think, to Bitcoiners how much pain people have absorbed in the US, right? I mean, you know, Tea Party, the original Tea Party, you know, freaked out over a 2% tax, right?
Yeah.
We have had.
That was the revolution, you mean?
Yeah, we've seen people. The price of food, the price of gas, the price of energy, the price of everything right here in the United States has gone up by 20, 30%, 40% in some instances over the last 3 years. So what people put up a sticker that said, you know, Biden did that. You know, I don't know. It's like, when are people going to wake up? It seems like Americans used to be, and I think, listen, so Americans used to be a lot more eager to take action, a lot more willing to, even our media, right? Our media was a lot more willing to point out the corruption, the deception, the things that were going wrong in the country. Nowadays, the media does not have our voice, and it does not have our back here in the United States, right? So what is it going to take before enough people are angry enough to stand up, right? And this is where I think we're kind of like the frog in a boiling pot, right? So we definitely have Americans waking up, but we don't have a voice at the table. And where do we hit this sort of boiling point here in this country where people begin to say, I've had enough, and we take action? So this is a really interesting and, I think, kinetic point in history for the United States right now, going into this election. Whatever the results of that, the electoral process, who gets to be the final candidates, we're going to learn a lot about ourselves as Americans again, and where we are in our own mindset and our voice at the table. I think a lot of people are beginning to realize that their voice has been, they felt free. They felt like they could say what they wanted to say until COVID. And maybe some voices were strangled during that time, and it started to wake some people up. But I think a lot of people are now waking up to the idea that, like, holy cow, has my voice really mattered? And how long has it not mattered for? And so that whether you know, that process of saying, man, do I really have a say in this system, is making people question the system. And I think this is why we're starting to see people wake up to Bitcoin. One of the many, but I think people are beginning to make that connection.
So you've heard Bitcoin is the new gold rush by now. As world leaders on all sides have endorsed it as the future of money, and now you're looking to get started, we'll show you how. It's actually easier than you think. First, go to your nearest ByteFederal ATM and turn your cash to coin. ByteFederal has over 1,200 locations around the country with the highest daily limits. Go to our website, bytefederal.com, to find the nearest ATM to you. Log in to any wallet, then create an account, deposit your US cash, and instantly convert it to Bitcoin. That's it. We are the only US manufacturer and operator in the Bitcoin ATM industry, and our US-based live customer service is second to none. Go on, give it a whirl, and don't get left behind. Click the link below.